How good was prime Carmelo Anthony really? With Carmelo Anthony clearly not in his prime and his career seemingly coming to a close pretty soon, many who weren't able to watch Melo during the prime years of his career are wondering how good he actually was. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionative NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Carmelo Anthony was one of the best players of this previous generation. The level of play that he was able to consistently put up in his years with both the New York Knicks and the Denver Nuggets was just on another level, but although Melo wasn't able to have all that much playoff success during the prime years of his career, and although that part certainly was a disappointment, I still think Melo was a phenomenal player in the prime years of his career, and I don't personally think there are too many players that were better than prime Melo. And I also don't think that Melo got the credit that he did deserve for how well he was playing in the prime years of his career. And I think a part of the reason why he didn't get enough respect is how his career did end with the New York Knicks and how he was forced out of New York, which wasn't necessarily his fault, but I do think it had a negative impact on how Melo was perceived by the general fan base. But Melo certainly did have his fair share of personal achievements, which kind of showed how great of a player he truly was. Melo was basically an all-star every single season starting in 2007 and ending in 2017. He basically made all NBA every single season starting in 2005. He also put up phenomenal statistics in every year of his prime, and even in the 2012-2013 season, he won the scoring title, which was widely regarded as the best season of his career. But now let's look at Melo's game point by point to really describe why he was so good and why he was able to achieve all those achievements that I listed before. So starting with his three-point jump shot, Melo was always known as a really good three-point shooter. Melo had all the abilities you would ever need in terms of the catch and shoot three-point jump shot, crossover, sidestep, step back, even had a nice pull-up three-point jump shot, and even besides all the individual abilities that he had from that range, he was also shooting a pretty good percentage each and every season, and on Melo's career, he's shooting around 36% from deep, but even throughout the years of his prime, Melo was shooting an even better percentage. But now moving on to his mid-range shooting ability, this is probably the best aspect of Melo's game, and Melo has always been known for his mid-range jump shooting. But from that range, Melo of course had a really nice pull-up mid-range jump shot. He had a phenomenal post turnaround fadeaway, whether that meant a traditional post turnaround fadeaway or whether that meant a Dirk Nowitzki one-legged post turnaround fadeaway. Melo had it all. He also of course had a nice crossover into a mid-range jump shot as well as a sidestep and step back. He ran the pick and roll very nicely right into a pull-up mid-range jump shot, and overall from that mid-range, not only was Melo shooting a phenomenal percentage, but he also had all the moves from that range as well. But now talking about his driving and finishing ability, Melo of course had a lot of skills in this area as well, had the ability to posterize players from time to time, more so in his Denver days than his New York Knicks days, but of course still had the ability when he was a member of the Knicks. But mostly what Melo did once driving all the way to the basket was finish around players with crafty layups, either with his left or right hand, had a nice ability to finish through contact, had phenomenal footwork in the post, had a pretty nice floater within his game, had a nice touch around the basket in general, and overall Melo was just a very complete scorer. And at the time, he was certainly one of, if not the best scorers in the NBA, and even at this stage of his late career, Melo is still known as a phenomenal scorer. But talking about Melo's passing and playmaking ability, this was certainly an ability of his game that was heavily criticized throughout his career, but in my opinion, I think it was a little bit better than people gave him credit for. I still don't necessarily think he was a phenomenal passer and playmaker, I think that was pretty clear, but at the same time, once he was getting doubled or triple teamed, he certainly had the capability and showed the willingness to pass the ball to the wide open teammate for either a wide open catch and shoot three-point jump shot or maybe a wide open dunk or layup. Also had the ability to run the pick and roll and find open teammates that way as well. Sometimes ran the offense, but most of the time Melo was known as a scorer and wasn't necessarily known for his passing and playmaking ability. Now talking about Melo's defense, of course he also wasn't necessarily known as a phenomenal defender, but he certainly proved he was an above average defender when he wanted to be, especially especially during that 2012-2013 NBA season, which I mentioned before was widely regarded as the best season of his career. He certainly showed a lot of effort defensively that year and certainly proved the ability to defend at a pretty decent level in my opinion. But overall, the main ability and the main attraction of Carmelo Anthony in his prime was certainly his scoring ability and how well he was able to do that. And when you just look at the numbers that Melo was able to put up in his years with the Denver Nuggets and also with the New York Knicks, even towards the tail end of his career with the Knicks, it was pretty clear that Melo was a phenomenal talent. And even just watching him out there, it was also very apparent that he was one of the better players in the NBA for some time. And in my opinion, whenever you talk about the greatest scorers of all time, I certainly do think Melo deserves to be on that list due to the fact that he was so diverse offensively, on top of the fact that he was also a very prolific and very efficient scorer. I don't personally think Melo is the greatest scorer of all time, but at the same time, I certainly, of course, as I said, think he does belong on that list. But although Melo was a phenomenal talent, the biggest criticism by far on Melo was the fact that he wasn't able to win an NBA championship or really even have all that much playoff success in general throughout the prime years of his career. Now, of course, in Denver, he certainly had really good teams and certainly had the capability to make it pretty far in the playoffs, but of course wasn't able to win an NBA championship in Denver. But the reasoning that a lot of people gave was the fact that Melo was pretty young in Denver, and once he moved on and moved to the New York Knicks, he would have a lot more experience and then potentially be able to bring an NBA championship to New York. Now, to be fair, in New York, Melo didn't necessarily have the best teams, and really some of the teams that Melo was a part of really had no chance of winning an NBA championship, so I don't necessarily blame that on Melo. But at the same time, there certainly were a couple of teams in New York that had the potential to win an NBA championship, specifically the team in 2012-2013, where they were the number 2 overall seed in the Eastern Conference, and most people expected them to at the very least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But of course, they came up short in that regard, and obviously they didn't win the NBA championship that season. So that year was certainly a disappointment, and Melo clearly was the best player on the Knicks throughout the entire time that he was there, and he certainly does deserve some of the blame for the lack of success in New York. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think it was completely all his fault. But overall, talking about Melo's career, he certainly was a phenomenal talent, amazing offensive player, clearly had the ability to carry his team to wins in certain games, and clearly proved that over the years. He was just so versatile offensively and just a great talent overall. And although he certainly did have his shortcomings once it came down to the playoffs, and in my opinion, I think those criticisms are very legitimate, I still at the same time think Melo was a phenomenal talent and he needs to be appreciated more. So hopefully whenever Melo does end up retiring, whether that's in a season from now, maybe 2 or 3, but whenever the time does come, hopefully Melo will be remembered for the great play that he had in both New York and Denver rather than his playoff failures. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Carmelo Anthony was a great player in his prime, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.